Welcome. Here we are. We are here now, and this is Accelebration. This is humanity's team. This is life. And I'm so pleased to be here with you and to share this moment of acceleration. We're accelerating through this whole thing here. We're accelerating into our awakening. We're accelerating in our own personal growth and our collective growth because they're one and the same. And I'm Noah. I'm here to just usher in our wonderful program that we have today. We have a wonderful guest who I will introduce shortly, and it's Mark Nepo to give away the secret here. And to pay homage to Mark, for those who are familiar with Mark, Mark is just an eternal poet and storyteller, and has just a power in the stories that he tells, the poems that he writes and shares that just touch us just deeply internally. So I'd like to just start us off and first of all, welcome everybody. Get your glass of water or whatever drink you'd like. Kick back, relax, type in chat. I see our chat box here, so welcome Diane for joining us, and we'll be bringing in any comments that we feel contribute. So use the chat feature. This is live, and we are so pleased to be with you. I'd like to share just one line as we start from the book of Psalms. It's called Tehillim in Hebrew. Because I'd say today's theme is courage. Courage not in the sense of being fearless, but courage in the face of fear. And Mark shares so beautifully how we do this, how we're not blocking the fear, we're not preventing it, but experiencing it and letting it flow through, you may say. So, along these poetic lines, from Psalm 1, the very first psalm, talks about somebody whose desire is in the teaching of the one, of the Lord, of the one, the teachings of this one. And Psalm 1 says, "This person shall be like a tree deeply rooted alongside brooks of water, that yields its fruit in due season, and whose leaf never withers, and everything that he does will succeed. Everything that she does will succeed." A person who is just committed to the teachings of the one, of all of this. I'd also like to share a story before we bring Mark into this program. Just if we're on this line of courage, I think I get the sense that in some sense courage is also has a component of judgment. Fear has a component of judgment. If we're fearful of something, we're making a judgment about it. And so if we can make this bridge of judgment and fear. Today I was riding my bicycle over to the grocery market to get cat food. Ran out of cat food, and the cats let me know that I ran out of cat food. And so I'm riding my bike over to the store, and I go up on the sidewalk, and I see a man walking with a dog far down the path. And as I enter the sidewalk, there is a dog pile, a pile of dog waste right in the middle of the sidewalk. And admittedly, I made a judgment at this point to say, come on, man, right in the middle of the sidewalk, just, pick that. I didn't say this, but that's like what I thought. That's the essence of what I thought. Drove by the man with his dog, and then I realized that I guess I wasn't thinking fully because I went down the wrong path. I was still in this sort of judgment. I wanted to get past the person. I passed him, only to realize that I went down the wrong path, so I had to turn around, and I saw the man and the dog face to face. So I passed by them saying, come on, this guy just right in the middle of the sidewalk. That was my understanding of things. I could have went to the store, and that would have been reality. But I took the wrong path. I had to come back and pass by the man again. And when I passed by the man again, I saw him reaching for this communal tray of dog bags to pick up after your dogs in the park. And he was reaching for one. And I said, of course, he's not going to leave it there. He just walked to go pick up a bag so that he could clean it up. And in this moment, I said, of course, I say this all the time, but this shows me very, very specifically, very obviously, the value of judgments oftentimes that they have in our life. We're just making up a story. And clearly, I made up a story about this man that he was not going to pick up after his dog, which, upon returning back and seeing him reach for the dog bag, I had to flip my judgment around. The best part of the story is that I came back, went to the store, got my cat food, and returned back on that same path, and the dog pile was still there. So I had three separate judgments in this, and they were all, honestly, I don't know what to expect at this point, if it's still there or what happened. The only thing I do know is that I don't know, and I can't make a judgment about this. So with this, I'd like to welcome our guest, our new faculty of our brand new free series and our masterclass, Mark Nepo. So Mark, thank you for being with us.
Hey, well, it's great to be with you. It's great to be with you. And it's interesting your story because what it says is we all have to look 360 in all directions. Any one view is just partial. It's just partial, and we can't make conclusions or even assess what's going on until after time has passed. We're so used to everything being instantaneous in our culture, you know. Um, but things that matter take time. They always have, and they still do.
Yes, they do, and how wonderful it is that they take time. I could just hear some of the poems that you share about this this concept of what we typically understand as like a negative thing, like oh, it has to take time, or oh, I have to experience pain. Mark, you share so in such a nice, concise, simple yet powerful and poetic way to appreciate these moments and to revel in them and see the beauty in them. And so, my first question for you is, how did you how did you become such a storyteller? At what point in your life did you consider yourself a poet and a storyteller? And how did that really develop? What was the course of action of development?
Well, I think thank you. That's a wonderful question, and I think it's a great question for anyone to ask each other, because we're all storytellers. The poet Muriel Rukeyser, wonderfully in one of her poems, she said, say it. The universe is not made up of atoms, but stories." And that's beautiful because before there were schools and universities, stories and questions were how education took place, and they're still at the heart of education. So to your question, there's two. I mean, the storyteller part really comes from first in my family. Um, there were people in my grandfather's generation who were great storytellers. I remember I had my grandfather on my father's side. He was one of six sons who had come at the turn of the last century, the 1900s, from Russia to America, to New York City. And Uncle Axie, my great Uncle Axie, was a great storyteller. And I can remember as kids, 8, 9 years old, we and cousins, and we would visit them all in Brooklyn. And in this small little kitchen in a little 4-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn where my grandmother lived, my grandfather had passed away by then, but Uncle Axie would sit at the kitchen table and we'd all be on the floor of this Brooklyn apartment, like this, looking up, and he would have us wrapped in story. And I think, you know, in my own life, ever since I was very, very little, um, before I had any language for what it was to be a poet or um, to listen for the stories of life, life has always spoken to me in metaphor. I didn't even know what metaphor, was when I was a little boy. But even as a little boy, if the wind suddenly was moving through the trees, it was like it was saying to me, "Pay attention. Give us your attention. This is like what? What is this like? Come on." And so I was always in this kind of conversation with life. And I really started though practicing being a poet of the heart when I was a teenager, and the first woman I fell in love with broke up with me and broke my heart. And I wasn't a loner, but I didn't have intimate friends till I went to college. So in order to heal, I began to write. And once I started to heal, I realized I wasn't talking to myself. I had begun a conversation with the universe, which I have continued, to this day. And I think one of the things that we're asked, and which we'll look at in the master class for sure, is how do we listen for the story that we're a part of more than the story we want to tell? We live in the age of, movies and cinema are such an amazing medium of our modern era, but they also make us unconsciously want to be the director of our own films. And we work too hard sometimes to make sure we come out as the hero or the victim. And that all prevents us from listening for the story that we're a part of. Where is life leading us? And to listen that deeply and that openly, as you mentioned earlier, Noah, that takes a quiet courage. That takes a quiet courage to receive things and then as to act on them. To act on them as this is new information. This is what matters. Things are not what I thought they were.
Yes, indeed. And just to share with our audience here, now Mark is a part of a brand new program that we're offering. There's a free series called 6 Essential Practices to Help You Face Your Fears and Live a More Courageous and Loving Life. And Mark's segment of this, so it's featuring Mark Nepo and Chris Carr, and Mark's segment just aired a few days ago, and you can sign up for the series. Jim can put the link in to find our sign up. You can sign up, it's free, and you can watch Mark's full program here. And we'll get back. We have some clips of this to show throughout our discussion here, but I just want to bring this in now because this is an extended conversation. And yeah, you can see the URL here. Go here. We'll put a link in chat to sign up for this free series. We'll be talking a bit more about it. But before we get a bit more into this free series, and by the way, Mark's program is called Flexing Your Heart Muscle. We'll watch a segment from this in a bit. Mark, in your sharings, another question I have for you, which I guess can maybe be a bit robust or can be loaded, but you share how when you were younger and especially during facing your cancer journey, that you were always fearful, and you were a 14 out of 10 in just any given moment. And I'm wondering, clearly, hindsight, we can see kind of the value of this and why this had to happen in a sense, because this makes you the reed flute, which we can get back into it. This has drilled the holes in you to let the wind pass through. But how was just day-to-day life? We get snippets of, this particular instant was fearful, but just day-to-day life, how did you operate being just loaded with fear all the time, and what was the source of it, if you can even
Well,
think?
yeah. So, and this I think is, thank you. That's a good question. And this is also very relevant today because what I went through in my cancer journey is a microcosm of what we're all going through during the pandemic. So, let's just talk for a moment that fear, the proper role of fear is to alert us to legitimate danger. I come too close to the flame on the stove, and There's a sense of, oh, I jump back a little bit. That's the proper role of fear. But what we do, because we're human, is, you can see the flame on the stove, but things that we fear emotionally and mentally and spiritually, they're harder to see. And we tend to inflate what we're afraid of and make it bigger. And so then it creeps in everywhere. So, when I was, honestly, when I went through about a 3-year period that was the heat of my cancer journey in my early 30s, I had a rare form of lymphoma and almost died. And so during that time, the beginning of it, I had never been through anything really, life-threatening. So I wasn't really afraid at the beginning of dying. I was afraid of what I would have to go through to be here, to make it through this gauntlet, this horrible journey. So I was what it's like to live. I'm sure people can identify with this. Is I was so inflated what I was afraid of that everything that came at me, I was jumpy. It was big. So when I was in the hospital, if a nurse came in to take some blood, I reacted as if they were taking me into surgery. Everything, as you mentioned, I had mentioned that if it was a scale of 1 to 10, I was 14. I was way over the top. And not through any wisdom on my part, but because I exhausted my heart. I had to start making discernments and seeing things more accurately as they were. So I had to say, okay, this, what I'm being asked to do, I don't like it. Maybe I don't really want to do it. But is it really a 14? Because I had to conserve my heart's energy to meet the things that were big when they really were big. And so I had to start to learn how to meet things accurately. And that was practicing how to use my heart. So, it was Hippocrates famous Greek physician Hippocrates, that the Hippocratic oath that physicians take is based on. But Hippocrates said, pleasure is the absence of pain, and calm and peace are the absence of fear. So when we have those moments, we need to build on them and not inflate our fear so it's everywhere. And we've had to experience this now during the pandemic. All of a sudden, life, over a year and a half ago, changed for everyone. And there was this unseen, still is there, this unseen virus that's deadly. And, we all were understandably, oh, it's here, it's there. Oh my God, do I need to wipe my grocery? Everything. And yet, even as big as all of that has been, life is bigger. The mystery is bigger than that. And so one of the things we've been asked to do during this pandemic is to become more intimate with the unknown. Yes, the unknown can bring catastrophe, it can bring disaster, it can bring difficult things, but it also has always brought beauty and love and wonder. And so we need not to make everything disaster, and we can't sugarcoat it and make everything wonderful. Life is mysterious. And, like water, I have a glass of water here. Yeah. And it's made, we all learn early in school, it's made of hydrogen and oxygen. But if I were to ask you for a glass of hydrogen, you can't give me that. Because if we could separate it, it would no longer be water and it would no longer be life giving and quenching. So we have to meet things that are difficult as they are and not block out the wonder and beauty and resilience and mystery of life that is there to help us get through those difficult times. And of course, no one knows how to do this, which is why we need each other.
Oh boy, you're setting us up nicely here, Mark. So, on this note, Jim, let's cut over to the first segment. Now, again, this is from the free series called Six Essential Practices to Help You Face Your Fears and Live a More Courageous and Daring Life, and Loving Life, rather. And it's featuring Mark Nepo and Chris Carr. It's free to sign up. Look in chat to sign up. And this is just a little taste of Mark's part of the program. So go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
From my view, it feels like the first paradox we start with is that life seems to have been made just hard enough that we need each other to ensure the journey of love. No one can do it alone. And the other thing that I've learned about life is that life doesn't add up, it opens up. And I'm not the first to think about these things. We can go back to Plato, all the way back to Plato, and he had this wonderful paradox. He said we are born whole, WHOLE, but we need each other to be complete. So while we're each unique in our gifts, and no one's been here who's you or who's been me, but at heart we're the same. And so, we find this other paradox that when I look deep enough into me, oh, I find you. And when you listen deeply enough to me, oh, unexpectedly, you find your own truth swimming in there. And so we only seem to see as far into the world as we can see into ourselves. So how does this all work? Well, that's where compassion and empathy come in. We are more together than alone, and it's through empathy and compassion that we access these depths in each other, that we hit these resources, that we drink from the waters of life. That's how it all comes into being. So let's look now for a few minutes at empathy and compassion. So empathy, we could really understand simply, it's the practice of sharing the feelings of others. So Steve, if you're going through heartache and I'm listening to you, oh God, I open up to sharing your feeling, to trying to understand what it is to be you. But now compassion goes deeper. Compassion literally means being one with. So compassion is the honest keeping of company. So you could say that compassion is empathy in action. Compassion is empathy in action. And so, you know, one of the deepest rewards for kindness, and this is where we get to the agents of kindness, is that, certainly if we're kind to each other, our relationship gets stronger. But one of the rewards for kindness is that if I'm kind, I experience oneness for being kind.
All right, and again, that's from the free series. You can click the link in chat, sign up. It's free, and you will hear it's 2 hour long programs that you'll get. One with Mark, and one with Chris Carr, and they're beautiful. They're expanding on these things where there's just little golden nuggets just sprinkled through the whole gem-studded hour. Now, Mark, of course, I'm not sure if you have anything to extend upon what we just saw, but also in the masterclass, which of course is called Daring to Live an Authentic Life. And you go into this concept of asking ourselves if we're accepting bad needles. So in our free segment, we just watched how compassion is empathy in action, and then you also bring it back to self-compassion with are we accepting bad needles? So I'm hoping that you can maybe share with us what this means
Sure.
if we're accepting bad needles.
Yeah, that's a metaphor. Thank you, Noah. That's a metaphor that comes from my journey, and this is a story I'm sure people who've been through stuff will identify with it. Where I've had oh my God, countless needles and drawings of blood through the years, and of course when I was going through all that, and this was about maybe 5 years after on the other side of my cancer, but I was going through extensive checkups and stuff, um, and a nurse was taking blood, and I was in a practice where other people were being treated at the same time in a big room, um, and the nurse hadn't really put the needle in properly, so it was really sore. My arm was swelling a little bit, and my wife Susan was with me, and and she had said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Oh, it's nothing," and she said, "No, something's wrong." And I said, "Oh no, it's all right." Um, and then the nurse was actually by, and I thanked her for helping me, um, and she had said half sarcastically, "Oh, we treat him like hell, and he thanks us." And I kind of laughed and thought it was funny, and my wife was getting furious, and you know, and I realized, and we talk about things taking time. That happened, oh, now it's probably 20 years ago, but it took me another maybe 5 years after that incident or more. And that moment came back to me in a dream. But now I realized that it was a metaphor that I was colluding in my own suffering because I didn't speak the truth that the needle was put in badly. I was accepting bad needles because I didn't want to be seen as complaining or demanding too much attention. And I was not exhibiting self compassion. I was hurting myself further. And it became a great lesson and teacher. But these things, again, it's a great example too that I didn't understand it in the moment. It actually took years later for it to arrive in my consciousness as, oh, wow. So the question that I share and I talk more about in the master class and I put to all of you is, are you accepting bad needles in your life? Are you colluding? Life is hard enough. There are certainly, there are always things that challenge us, that break us, that wear us down and open. But in addition to that, we don't want to be colluding in our own suffering. So it helps to look and say, are you accepting a bad needle anywhere in your life? And how do you stop and tell the truth and say, no, uh, I'm sorry, you put this in wrong. It can't stay this way. We need to change this.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mark. And I just wanted to also share that there are such a powerful sharing in the masterclass. Of course, the free series gives us a taste for it. And of course, it's a name and email. So sign up for the free series to extend this. But the masterclass is just filled. Mark, each one of the 8 modules is filled with these stories, these tools of thought, these concepts that just stick with you. And I left, I had to write a poem just because it was so. After going through the masterclass, I was presented with a situation where I said, I don't usually write poems, but in this case, I have to. Okay, and while we're on the screen, what happened? We film. So I got to observe the filming of this masterclass with Mark, and right after this, it's pretty much just a surge of poetry and storytelling. I was walking outside the office. I was in Boulder at the humanities team office. Just had gotten here, and I saw a newly hatched butterfly, and I had never seen. I have seen butterflies, but this was a newly hatched butterfly. It was a butterfly that had floppity wings in pristine condition. You never see a butterfly's wings just perfectly with no tears and nothing ripped off. and Floppity, like still moist, running on the ground, trying to get to safety because he or she must have fallen out of the tree. And so I saw somebody looking at the butterfly, and he had to leave. So then I picked up the butterfly, and he was just running around, newly born. The, just the epitome of freedom, butterfly, and transformation. Beautiful creature, just at the mercy of somebody that wants to be kind, essentially. And so took the butterfly, and he just kept running off my hands, and put him in a tree until he hung upside down to let her wings dry enough to start flapping away. And right after watching Mark's modules, right after experiencing this, I just sat down and just a whole poem flew right through me. So I will say, for anybody going through the masterclass, be prepared, get a journal, because this is about journaling. This is about writing. It's about just embracing the story that's within us, giving us a tool, a method, a way of expressing it in a way that's poetic and powerful to tell our point. So thank you, Mark.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Very kind of you. It was a joy to record that whole series with all of you. We've been working on it for almost a year now. So it's been quite a journey.
Yes, it has. So I'd like to ask you another question from the master classes that you bring in, another concept. You talk about the first reed flute that was made by humans, and when it was made, and all the dangers that were present in our life at that time, and how you essentially make this into a metaphor for how we can live today. I'm hoping you could share a bit about this.
Yeah, and I think this is a good example of the story, listening for the story that we're a part of. That going through my cancer journey, it gave me a different lens on life about how uh, the place of suffering in our life. Nobody likes suffering, and we certainly don't have to seek it. But because of what I went through, I could see for the first time that what erosion is to nature, suffering is for human beings. It wears us to reveal our inner beauty. And of course, it hurts sometimes to have that happen. And which is another reason we need each other to help hold each other up to this eternal process. And so it made me realize, and and actually this metaphor came to me in a dream from the unconscious, that flutes, not flutes that are made by music stores beautifully, but they're all the same and they're metal. But the original flutes that were actually carved from animal bone. And I looked into it, and the earliest flutes we know of came from Northern Europe in Germany in prehistoric times, 70,000 years ago, where people would carve a hollow bone from a mammoth. They're extinct now, but they were enormous, kind of bison like slash elk like creatures, and would carve holes in the bone. Can you imagine how long that took by hand? Carve holes in the bone so that when breath went through the holes, it would release music. Now, the first thing is, back then when life, just external survival, was so difficult, what made that first person take all that time to carve holes in a mammoth bone to create the first flute if the inner life wasn't as important as the outer life? If and so the metaphor that leads to is that no two original flutes played the same song because no two flutes had the same holes. And so every soul on earth is such a flute, and experience carves holes in us. Now, I'm not advocating suffering. You don't have to look for holes to be carved in you. This is part of the process of being alive. It's like talking about gravity. It just is. And so experience carves holes in us so that the wind of spirit can release our song, can release our song. And so part of compassion is listening for the song, our song and the song of others. And not when we know that life is opening us up, trying not to resist it. Because the worst thing, the worst position of all is to be half carved, where you feel the pain of being carved by life, but not enough that the song isn't released. That's a terrible, terrible, painful position to be in. And I think when people are not able to open themselves to the full experience of life, and we are caught between, that's when we wind up susceptible to all kinds of addictions, because we want to, oh, that's so painful, we want to douse the pain, we want to quiet it, we want to run from it. But each of us is a flute, looking for how to hear our song, how to live openly enough that the song of life can come and spirit can come through us.
Yes, it is. And Mark, if you don't mind, kind of along these notes, you also share how, essentially, you just shared that the worst thing is that we're half carved and not all the way through. And I don't know if you would mind sharing a bit about the Buddhist understanding of the difference between pain and suffering along these same
Yeah,
lines.
yeah. So one of the things, and all the traditions have beautiful stories and different ways of speaking about these kind of spiritual laws, if you will. And in the Buddhist worldview, a distinction that is made sometimes is that pain is the friction of the wheel of life. It's just like that erosion. Nobody gets out of here without gets through life without having to deal with these things. It's part of being here. And so imagine if an ant tried to stop the earth from turning on its axis. Well, it can't. There's no way it can do that. We can't do that. Nothing can do that. And so when we try to stop the wheel of life from turning, we double our pain. And that's what is known in the Buddhist tradition as suffering. Suffering is the added pain that comes from trying to stop the wheel of life, which comes in all forms. It comes from denial or from breaking other things to take attention away from the heart, the breaking that we experience, or the heartache that we experience. So often it comes in denial. Often it comes in running away from things, or trying to keep things from happening. I don't want this to happen. I don't, it's not, no, I'm not going to accept it. I'm not going to accept it. And what we do when we do that is we're trying to stop the wheel of life. And what we inadvertently do is hurt ourselves and others more.
Yes, we do. So thank you for sharing this beautiful way of seeing this, making this distinction in our life. Mark, if you don't mind, so of course we're talking about this free series, which we have in chat to sign up. It's featuring Mark and Chris Carr. And so one question that we may ask is, why Chris Carr? So Jim, let's play that second segment, and we can get a bit more from Mark after.
And Mark, let me just ask you, why is this important? Why did you want to make room in your busy schedule for a masterclass like this?
Well, and first, it's just wonderful to have the chance for us all to work together. And I think that, and we've worked hard, all of us together, around centering around what this masterclass is all about. And, it's because we're more together than alone, and that I want to offer this, and because I feel that the fundamental challenge of the 21st century is to help each other stay awake by being who we are and staying in relationship. And this master class offers ways to do this. As I've done some work in one of my books, More Together Than Alone, is about the history of community and moments when we've worked well, and looking at the Dark Ages in Europe, which were the 12, 13, 1400s. Um, Amazingly, I discovered that only 10% of the European population was literate. That means 90% was illiterate, and 10% kept the literacy alive for 300 years. And right now, when we're blessed to be awake and aware and compassionate, then it's incumbent on us to keep the literacy of the heart alive now. And meeting like this, like in this master class, offerings like this, help us do this.
Yes, it does, Mark. So thank you. And I don't know if you have any other words to say about Chris and just this beautiful program that we've been working on, as you say, for over a
Yeah, so
year.
Chris is a beautiful, wise soul, an old soul, and she has struggled with cancer and is still struggling with cancer, and is a remarkable light. And we met originally through Oprah. We both were interviewed by Oprah at different times, and we just felt an instant connection. And I've always wanted to explore as teachers something together and open up that space that we both know what it is, how precious it is to be here, and how fragile it is to be here too. And this is because when we are in these acute situations, these life-threatening situations, and they could also be life enhanced. It doesn't mean, it's not just because it's catastrophe that opens us up to transformation. It can be wonder, beauty, it could be all kinds of things. But these concentrated experiences reveal the lessons and the choice points that all of us face in more no, quote normal times. Things become more clear. And I think that Chris is a very good teacher in highlighting those choice points and being very kind of spiritually practical, and uh, helping us find, okay, what's that look like for me? And that's something I'm committed to, as you know from my teaching, is there's no how to. Um, Chris or I, we can't tell you how to do these things, but we can point up all the places where we need to personalize our practice, because only you, if you're listening, only you know in your own wisdom what is most life-giving. And so, one of the aims of this master class is to help introduce you to your own gifts and your own wisdom, and to help each of you find your way to discovering what those gifts and what those practices are for you. For you.
Yes, indeed. And what I love, Mark, how you and both you and Chris share is that you're not sugarcoating this. You're not sugarcoating it. You're not giving, but it is blueberry coated. Like it is delicious. It's just not sugar coated. so so appreciate much appreciated with all that you're sharing with us, and all you continue to, and this beautiful program that we've assembled. So while we're on this point, of course, at the end of this sharing, we saw a Humanity Stream Plus logo. I'd just like to share a bit about the Humanities team's involvement in all of this. So, for those of us familiar with this messaging, we've just launched on this campaign that we call PACE. PACE, it stands for Planetary Awakening, Conscious Evolution. And so we are setting the pace. We invite you to join us in picking up the pace. The pace to what? To universal flourishing. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, I like to envision this sometimes as just a tandem bicycle ride. The destination, when we go on a tandem bicycle ride, we start here, we hop on the bicycle, we go around the park, and we end up right back here. And this is how I like to think of pace. We're setting this pace on our tandem bicycle. You can hop on, you can pedal along with us. We're setting this pace for universal flourishing. Just as, often if we experience something or stressful or anxiety, we may go for a walk around the park, or dare I say, a tandem bicycle around the park to clear our minds. And this is what we're inviting us all to do now, is just to take this spiritual, metaphorical bike ride with us. We're going around the park and we're going to end up right here. But when we get back, we're going to party, we're going to celebrate. We're going to have all sorts of kombucha and treats and blueberries and fruits and so forth. So be sure to read a bit more and just stay tuned, because PACE, we're just starting to talk about this and develop how we speak of it and how we get everybody involved, because this is much greater than Humanities Team. It's not just one organization. It's not just one endeavor. We're saying 20 years because this is the scale that we're putting on this. Presidential campaigns are a year in length, and they're designed to get to vote for somebody. This is a 20-year campaign where we're giving each one individually the tools to best equip us collectively with flourishing. So we can't flourish unless you're flourishing. And you can't flourish unless I'm flourishing. And so we'll just continue to talk about this. We'll continue to share tools. We'll continue to provide resources and set up events so that we can be the beacons in our communities, whether they be virtual or physical in geography, of this flourishing, to be the oneness, to be the bridge between parties, because we all are the same person, the same entity, the same race. We're on the same planet. This is the oneness. This is Humanities Team. This is what it's been since the beginning of Humanities Team 20 years ago. And so right now we're just talking about it maybe in a different way, but it's the same vision. Now, we're able to speak of it in this new way, PACE, Planetary Awakening, Conscious Evolution, the PACE to Universal Flourishing. We speak of this. And right now, the tool that we're focusing on is Humanity Stream Plus. So Humanity Stream Plus is this streaming platform. You see a link on our screen, and Jim will share just a page about it, just so you can see what it looks like. Humanity Stream Plus is a streaming service for what we call conscious content. Everything in here is designed to help you, help us, help me on our spiritual journey that we're taking together, on our bike ride through the park, so to speak. All of these masterclasses are so powerful, and they each have a different perspective in how we can more fully step into the fullness of who we are, the infinite potential of who we are, the science behind it, our unlimited nature, our limitless nature. There's hundreds of hours on here. We have 10 of our own designed Humanities Team masterclasses. Soon to be on here is Daring to Live an Authentic Life, featuring Mark Nepo and Chris Carr. But if you don't mind, Jim, if you click on one of these and then go on to the search function, click on a masterclass down, or browse, go ahead, and then you'll see now we have access to the search. And so we're just going to search for Mark Nepo, and let's see what Mark has been a part of. Here they are. They just show up right here. You search Mark Nepo. Now it's sparse because we haven't yet added the masterclass. It will soon be much more robust, but you can see Mark has been on a handful already of different summits that you can, when you're a member of Humanity Stream Plus, you can come and listen to Mark's perspective on all these different things and all these different panels. Of course, you search Mark Nepo. You can search something as broad as love, for instance. You can search for science, whatever it may be. You can search for it and watch videos. This is one way of enjoying our content because, as we continue to say, the scope is vast. It's not just one masterclass. It's dozens of masterclasses and hundreds of other programs. So this is another search, and you can see all the masterclass modules that are on here, all the interviews that are on here. So right now, we are so thrilled to announce. Now, this is the web edition. We've just made it public on Android and iOS as an app. So you can search on the App Store. You can go in the App Store in Android and iOS, search Humanity Stream, and it will pop up. If you're a member on Stream, you can use your phone to access all this content. I can open up Humanity Stream on my phone, pull up a module, put it in my pocket, and listen to it on my headphones, for instance. We now have it on Roku. We have it on Apple TV, and soon to be more. We're adding content essentially every week, if not every other week. Master classes are coming in at least 4 times per year. And so what we really hope to emphasize, what we continue to emphasize with this, of course, all the content that's in here, that's just waiting for you to just inspect, and you, I'm sure, will be pleasantly surprised as to what resonates with you, what you may not have considered to resonate with you, but what just stands out is, oh, Michael B. Beckwith just speaks to my soul, and I just need to listen more. And just in the larger picture, of course, this is on the individual scale, what it provides with you. When you sign up for Humanity Stream Plus, you are making a statement. You are contributing to Humanity's team, who is helping to set the pace. So by being a Humanity Stream Plus subscriber, member, you are helping us to set the pace. You are helping us pick up the pace to planetary awakening and conscious evolution. So we'll have a link in chat. We have a link in chat. The link is on the screen. Please check out Humanity Stream Plus. There's a 7-day free trial. You will get access to Mark Nepo's new program on here. So there's our Humanity Stream Plus plug. Now, I'd like to get back with you, Mark, as we, speaking of eternal ancient truths, another thing you bring in your modules are these ancient diagnostic questions that Native Americans would ask people who are sick. And I'm hoping you could share these with us, or at least the gist of it.
Yeah. So these were these are indigenous. They go back to Native American medicine shamans, and I first learned about them from a great teacher, Angelus Arian, who wrote about it in one of her classic books, The Fourfold Way. And basically, when people would come, like we would go to the doctor, I don't feel well, and well, the Native American shaman would say, well, let's see, when was the last time you danced? You've got a headache, you're low energy, you actually got flu symptoms. When was the last time you sang? And when was the last time you told your story? And when was the last time you listened to the stories of others? Now, go take 2 or 3 weeks and do these things and come back, and we'll see if you feel any better. And those are remarkably wonderful inner questions of health. And of course, they point up, it's not just the body that makes us well or sick. It's the mind and the heart and the spirit. And they all work together. And so often, this is one of the things that I recognized during my cancer journey. I don't ascribe to the fact that, like I didn't create my cancer. I know there are some outlooks there that kind of say, oh, you manifest what you reap what you sow, and if you were not well inside, then you created this illness. I do think, though, that we do that illness shows up in our weak spots. So, like, take a bridge, a physical bridge. I like the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Well, a storm like that, if that bridge were to break, it would break in a spot that was already cracked and wearing. And so when a storm or a hurricane or a tornado comes, that point of stress is what's going to break first. So when I had my cancer, um, it was no surprise that I had a tumor on the right side of my skull, my brain, which is the creative side. And before my cancer journey, I was a driven young artist. So I don't think I created my cancer, but that was the weak spot in my bridge. That's where the stress was all gathered. So, of course, that's the part that would give way first. So these diagnostic questions that are in all, those are just in the Native American, but in all the traditions, ask these questions, the deepest questions, when we do a spiritual inventory, to say, where are you out of balance? Where are you not really listening? Where are you holding on to pain and fear so that it's building up and creating a stress point that could crack in your bridge? And by attending those things, because notice, singing, dancing, telling your story, and listening to stories are all agents of expression. So when we express, when we listen and speak and dance and let what's in out, we create a flow like circulation in the body that restores health. And again, only we can look personally to see where those things are blocked in us and where we can give deeper voice to them, healing voice.
Yes, we can. And so, Mark, I know you wanted to share with us a wonderful experiential uh, practice. But before you do, one more question for you, or just one more topic, and please just use this as a launching point into your experiential segment. But I love the quote that I'm not sure if it was your poem that you shared, but you say, our hands were born with nothing in them, and just
Yeah, that's the line from one of
so
my poems. Yeah,
nice. I
yeah,
love this.
yeah. And
So please.
we spend so much time uh, reaching for things and grabbing for things, and yet, our hands were born empty, and we'll leave with them empty. And there's plenty. Everything we need is right there. Well, I thank you, Noah and Jim, and I really did want to bring some kind of experiential aspect to our gathering today to give you a taste of what the journey in the master class will be like. And so what I'm going to do is I want to share a story and then lead you in a brief guided meditation. And then I'm going to invite you to actually, in 5 minutes, begin journaling. And which I hope, if it moves you, you will continue later when we're off of this sharing right now. And then I'll close with a poem. And that will and then turn it back over to Noah to bring us out of this sharing today, this overall sharing. Um, so the story, this is an ancient story. This is a story that goes back. It comes from the New Hebrides, which is a Polynesian island, a set of islands, and the indigenous culture there. And it was believed in ancient times, in the indigenous traditions, that human beings were immortal and that they would shed their skins like snakes and crabs, and that's how they would stay immortal and live more than one lifetime. So back then, there was a chiefess, a female chief of this indigenous tribe, and her name was Alta Marama. Isn't that a beautiful name? Alta Marama. And Alta Marama means change skin of the world. And Ultima Rama was realizing that she was getting old again. And this is a story of how human beings lost the ability to stay immortal and shed their skin. So Ultima Rama realized she was getting old, um, and so she went to the river where she was going to shed her skin, as she had done many times. And she got to the river and she did the right ritual, and she shed her old skin. And as she left the river, she noticed, didn't think much of it, but she noticed her old skin was caught on a branch, on a fallen limb of a tree on the edge of the bank, but she didn't think anything of it. And she started to walk back to the tribe where her family was. But now she was a young woman again, in a young woman's body, but she was a wise, wise old sage. And as she approached the village, her teenage daughter was approaching, and she called out to her, but her teenage daughter didn't recognize her. And she said, "Who are you?" Oh, she said, "Well, it's me, your mother. I just shed my skin, and no, and wait a minute. Who are you? I don't recognize you." And her daughter was getting anxious and fearful and angry. Angry. She was saying, "I don't know you. Get away from me. I want my mother." And Ultima Rama was trying to calm her and say, "No, you don't understand. Someday I will take you to the river and I will show you how to shed your skin. Really, it's okay. It's me." She said, "Get away from me. I want my mother. I don't know you. You repulse me." And Ultima Rama, to appease the fear and anger of her daughter, went back to the river and put her old skin on. And from that day forward, human beings lost the ability to shed their skins and be immortal. Now, this is a powerful ancient story. And who among us has not done this? Who among us has not kept quiet or stifled our truth or put on an old way of being or thinking or feeling to appease the anxiety or fear of a loved one? And is this really, do we really live forever? I don't think the story really is speaking about that literally, but I think what it is saying all those hundreds and thousands of years ago is that when we stop being authentic, when we put on a dead way of being, thinking, feeling, speaking, we lose access to what is eternal. We lose access to what is eternal. Now, this brings us to a very powerful old word and its original definition, and that is the word sacrifice. Now, we've seen a lot of amazing, courageous, and just poignant sacrifice in the last year with our healthcare workers and all the people who have helped us move through this pandemic. And that kind of sacrifice for the greater good of the whole, we've seen it in military people who have literally given up their lives for our freedom. That kind of sacrifice comes out of a soil of more ancient sacrifice. And that's this, that the original definition of the word sacrifice means putting down what no longer works in order to stay close to what is sacred. Putting down what no longer works in order to stay close to what is sacred, which tells us that what is sacred is always there, but what the things we do don't always remain viable. They change because we change. And so we have to recognize what no longer works, put it down, and pick up something new to get closer to what is sacred. Well, I think this is very relevant today, this ancient story and this ancient definition and custom and practice. So I want to lead you in a brief meditation. If you close your eyes and breathe. Yes, your hands are empty. Let them be empty as the day you were born. And close your eyes and open your hands. And I want you from a calm space. Just breathe in, breathe out. I invite you to identify one thing in your life right now that is no longer working, that you need to put down in order to stay close to what is sacred and life-giving. This thing that no longer works, it might be how you protect yourself, or it might be how you meet conflict, or how you avoid something difficult. It might be how you've always responded to fear. Maybe these things are no longer working. Breathe, inhale deeply, exhale. And now I want you to take a look at why this is not working any longer. Not with judgment, but the fact that, when a wheel breaks, you look and you see what happened. Did the rim crack or did a spoke break? What needs to be repaired to make the wheel work again? So I invite you to look at how you have changed. Look at this particular way of being or thinking or feeling that no longer works, and imagine what is needed now. And then, and this is very important for our heart's health, I invite you to thank this old way of being, thinking, or feeling for helping you this far, not blaming it because it doesn't work anymore. It's helped you to grow. It's served its purpose the way a cocoon serves a butterfly. When a butterfly emerges from a cocoon, it doesn't mean the cocoon was false. It means it served its purpose. So let's thank it. Thank this old way of being or thinking or feeling for helping you to this point. And as you're breathing, practice holding this old way of being, thinking, or feeling, and practice putting it down. Hold it, breathe, and now put it down. Hold it, breathe, and now put it down. And when you're ready, I ask you to open your eyes and keep your hands open. And feel what it might be like to go on without this old way of being that no longer works. So now, as we move out of that meditation, I want to offer you, as we set up our journaling question, that when things break down or they don't go as planned, there are always three perennial questions that we are called to ask ourselves. We need to ask ourselves, what needs to be repaired? And secondly, what needs to be reimagined? And finally, now that things have broken down, what needs to be left dismantled? That what things shouldn't we put back together? And I think these questions are very relevant today. So I want to ask you to take 5 minutes here and to begin journaling and take notes so that you can pursue it later next week when you're moved, because it's a question that demands more than these 5 minutes. We're just starting it here. But I want to ask you to personalize those three questions. So I'm going to invite you to ask yourself in this moment right now in your life, in the midst of this pandemic, what needs to be repaired in your life? What needs to be reimagined in your life? And now that things have broken down, what needs to be left dismantled? What is it in your life that you shouldn't put back together? And you may not get to all of this in these 5 minutes, but whenever you do, I'd like you to describe each of these and a step toward how the effort you could make to moving in each of these directions. So take a breath, and I invite you to go to the page, and we'll just stay quiet here for 5 minutes. until I bring you back. About another minute or two, so this would be a good time to take some notes so that when you do want to go back to this, if it's a week from now, you have a good sense of where you can continue. Okay, I would ask you to find a place to pause so you know where you're leaving off, and take a breath and open your hands again. And let me bring you out of this exercise and back to Noah by sharing this poem called Praying I Will Find. And this is a poem, recent poem, that I couldn't have written if not for years of seeing how life has changed in me and how I've grown, and from putting things down and getting closer, putting things down that don't work and getting closer to what is sacred. Praying I will find. I used to have so many, excuse me, let me take a sip of water. There we go. Praying I will find. I used to have so many plans, good plans, grand plans. In the beginning, I would be annoyed by the calamities I'd meet along the way that would keep me from my plans. I used to pride myself on how I could get back on track so quickly. But the more I loved and the more I suffered, the more my plans were interrupted by those in need. Eventually, the call of life, unexpected and unrehearsed, made Swiss cheese of my plans. Now, like an emperor undressed by time, I wander the days naked of plans, praying that I will find love to give and suffering to heal before the sun goes down. So I thank you. This has been a wonderful time together, and thank you also, Noah and Jim. I look forward to being with hopefully many of you on our journey in the master class.
Absolutely, boy. If right, thank you everybody for being here. And if you enjoyed this time, sign up for the free series, and you'll get immediate access to Mark's webinar, which we just broadcast. And also check out the masterclass, because there are Mark has 8 modules. Each one of these has a similarly powerful journaling exercise where we're, inspecting our, mental plumbing, so to speak, and making the repairs that have been left hidden for some time. So and thank you, Mark, for just for sharing with us, for staying extra with us, and for sharing these poignant questions, these healing questions with us, and these healing techniques here and in the free series and in the masterclass. So thank you for continuing to be with us. And
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you, and stay tuned for next week. Thank you again, Mark. So stay tuned for next week. We have Chris Carr as our guest, and Steve will be back in town, and we'll be chatting with Chris Carr to talk more about our current series, which is called 6 Practices to Help You Face Your Fears and Live a More Courageous and Loving Life. Sign up for the series, check out Humanity Stream Plus, help us pick up the pace, and continue with Mark's journal exercise. And we'll see you next week. We are Humanity's team. We love us. We love you. God bless.